This is Detroit's Morning Answer with John Anthony on FM 92.7 and AM 1400. The Answer.
And they would send $500 million to liberal news outlets by refunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It would also restore up to $5 billion of American taxpayer funds for wasteful spending for international projects. Here's a couple of examples. This is in their legislation, their counterproposal on the CR to keep the lights open. This is what they want to do. They want to spend $24.6 million of your hard-earned dollars as a taxpayer for climate resilience in Honduras. They want to spend $13.4 million for civic engagement in Zimbabwe. They want to send $3.9 million for LGBTQI plus democracy grants in the Western Balkans. They want to spend $2.9 million of your dollars for desert locust risk reduction in the Horn of Africa. And $2 million for, quote, organizing for feminist democratic principles in Africa. We are not doing that.
Now, that was Speaker Mike Johnson explaining the Democrat version of the unclean CR. That's what I like to call it. You know, I mean, here's my thing. You can tell a lot about a nation how it handles a shutdown. A lot of people see this as a dysfunction. Other people, like my next guest, see it as a long overdue moment of reckoning. In every shutdown, we hear the same warnings every time. Markets might dip, programs might pause, agencies might slow. But we rarely hear anyone ask the deeper question. Why does government need to do so much in the first place? My next guest has spent nearly 40 years asking that very question. He's challenged both parties. I know, I've met him a few times when I was a state representative. I do believe I signed his pledge. But he's challenged both parties to remember that the people behind the paychecks, the men and women who build, innovate, and sacrifice while Washington prints, tax, and spends. Grover Norquist doesn't just talk about cutting taxes. He talks about liberating people from the quiet tyranny of government bloat. His organization, Americans for Tax Reform, and his famous Taxpayer Protection Pledge have become touchstones in the modern conservative movement. So this morning, as America once again faces a government shutdown, we're asking, what does it really mean for our freedom, our economy, and the taxpayer footing the bill? Grover, welcome to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Oh, so very good to join you, and thank you for the kind words. And wow, we have a lot to do.
Yes,
the Speaker of the House went through the list of what the Democrats want to do. We need to decide what the country's going to do.
I really do agree. Now, Grover, you spent decades. I know because I've followed you ever since I came into this conservative Republican movement. You've spent decades shaping. How do I say this? America's modern tax philosophy. How does this shutdown reveal, in your opinion, the growing tension between government size and taxpayer freedom?
Well, the reason we have a shutdown is that the Democrats have refused to go through the usual order, which is where there's a committee that decides how much money they're going to spend on defense in the House and the Senate. They come up with a strategy. They argue with each other. They get a compromise. They go to the president. He might agree or they might argue with him when they do another compromise. And you work this out on all the various departments of government. Because the Democrats lost control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, and they no longer have a Supreme Court that can say, oh, you may have been elected, but we have six guys over here who haven't been elected, and we say no to everything that you want, and we're not really going by the Constitution, we're going by our political views.
Yeah.
Or, more recently, they hide the power inside the bureaucracy.
Yes.
And so the House and the Senate and the president can say, do this, and the bureaucracy says, well, here's what we're doing. We're going to send money to Zimbabwe to see how long you can stand on your head. Nobody voted for these people. Yeah. The bureaucracy was not elected by anyone. They have no authority to make these decisions. And in point of fact, if you read the entire Constitution, which I recommend to some of my friends on the left to do every once in a while, it's not that long, there is no bureaucracy in it, okay? There's the president and the executive branch. There's Congress. and there's the court system. There is no bureaucracy. There are people who work for the president, and that's where the president's saying, you know what? Congress votes what we spend money on. I manage how we spend it, what we're doing. No bureaucracy should say, thank you very much for the money. We'll spend it however we want to, regardless of what the American people want. And all those 10% of the money that the IRS union gives to politics goes to Democrats. Okay, we have a one-party bureaucracy.
Wow, Grover, I don't think people understand this year, 1996, fiscal year, for the fiscal year of 1997.
Yeah,
that was the last time all 13 appropriation bills went to and was voted on and passed. I mean, I looked at these numbers, and the revenues. Listen to this. This blew me away. We had revenues of $1.58 trillion, which was 18.6% of the GDP. Now, when you think about, and our federal debt at that time was $5.3 trillion. Why did we get away from this process? Because and then I think we also passed what was that, the budget, the Balanced Budget Act. I mean, none of that has come to fruition. Why continue this CR? I despise it. I as somebody who sat on an appropriations committee, I despise these CRs, Grover. Why can't we go back to what worked?
Because as long as the Democrats have 41 senators in the federal government, they can filibuster anything. What's happening, of course, is that the Republicans were going through regular order to do defense and veterans and these things, and they want to pass them. And the Democrats have said, we will filibuster the defense budget. The Republicans wanted just this last week to pass a defense budget so we could pay the soldiers.
Yeah.
And the Democrats said, no, we're holding them hostage because we want to give more money to National Public Radio and Zimbabwe for some reason. So as long as you have 41 votes in the Senate, you can say, no, that's what the filibuster is. It's a minority that says stop. This is usually done if there's some hugely big issue, almost constitutional, and then you say, let's talk about this, let's think about this. They're now using it on a daily basis to stop the budget from being written by Republicans and Democrats. This compromise that the Democrats don't want to continue, the CR, that was a compromise with the Democrats, by the way.
Yes.
They had agreed to that. This is not some Republican budget that the Democrats say, oh, we don't like it. This is the budget that was negotiated between Republicans and Democrats.
It's still Biden's budget.
Yeah. Too much of it is.
You know, a lot of, I know the Democrats are talking about, we got to do health care. I want you to hear this audio clip of former Congressman from Michigan, Peter Meyer, on the sticking point that the Democrats are using. I mean, he lays it out so beautifully, and I want to get your take on it.
I don't think this is good for the Democrats. I mean, you have Donald Trump negotiating Mideast peace and flying to Egypt to oversee an agreement between Hamas and Israel. And meanwhile, Chuck Schumer is parading around the Senate, trying to stage a photo op. I mean, the split screen between actual governance of the Trump administration and just a Senate Democrats trying to figure out their message, right? Senator Van Hollen pointed out, or he called the expiring Obamacare subsidies a ticking time bomb the Republicans planted. They were introduced in ARPA, the American Rescue Plan, in 2021. I know, I was in Congress. We all voted against it on the Republican side. That was a Democrat budget reconciliation bill. It got to the Senate, and it needed 50 Senate votes. They talked about making it permanent, could not get unified Democratic support to make it permanent. It came up again in the Inflation Reduction Act. They kicked a can down the road. Again, solely Democrats voting in support of this could not get Democrats to agree to make these permanent. And now somehow, years later, it's the Republicans that are the sticking point. You were right in March, sir. Chuck Schumer should just continue to reopen the government. And right now, Donald Trump is...
Now, Grover, one of the sticking points that the Democrats are holding on to is this. And they also want to provide coverage for illegal immigrants. But where's the Republican and their messaging on this? Because, I mean, as I'm going about in Illinois and in Michigan, people are believing what the Democrats are saying about this and not so much President Trump and the Republican messaging. Where are they missing it as it relates to how to message that, first of all, this was a ticking time bomb planted by the Democratic Party?
It was. I would argue that, yes, the establishment press sides with the Democrats. That's who gives them their leaks and their scoops. And so they work hand in glove with the Democrats and the bureaucracy and the news media. That used to be determinative. Back in 95, 96, there were 3 networks, and at 6 o'clock, they'd tell you what to think. And then at 11 o'clock at night, they'd tell you again what to think in case you'd forgotten. That doesn't happen now. There are radio shows that do not follow the left-wing line. There are whole networks. There are podcasts. President Trump ran a campaign where he spoke to many millions of people through podcasts and didn't have to go through national public radio, national government-run television to do that. So the polling does show that compared to all the previous efforts, which the Democrats, the establishment press said, oh, the Republicans did this. There was nonsense then, too. But this time, people are believing it less. So there's much more to do. It's disappointing that anybody believes that the Democrats who vote every day to stop the government from opening are somehow not the problem. But it's 50-50, and there are many, many more Americans awake to who's responsible.
Yeah. Now, Grover Norquist, I absolutely love your taxpayer protection pledge. I think anybody that's running for office should sign it. How has this pledge, in your estimation, reshaped the political landscape? Do you think it's helped lawmakers hold the line, especially a lot of the Republicans, amid budget brinkmanship?
Oh, absolutely. At our website, atr.org, you can go to a chart, and it shows from 1932, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt got elected, about 100 years ago, to 1994. The Democrats won Congress. The Republicans won control of the House and Senate twice in 62 years. Okay. Wow. Congress runs America. Presidents are interesting, but Congress runs America. And so, we had a one-party state for 62 years.
Wow.
And since what was 94? That was the year that 96% of Republicans, watching Bush break his pledge and lose, said, we're going to sign the pledge that says I will never vote for tax increase. And people can know they can trust me because you know what? They saw a president of the United States throw away his presidency by breaking the pledge. Yep. They saw me see him do that.
Yes.
So they know I'm not going to break my pledge because I know what it means.
Yeah.
And since 1994, Republicans have won control of both houses, all of Congress, 18 years, Democrats only 6 years.
Wow.
The pledge has changed who runs Congress.
And I think one of the reasons why, some of your critics say that your pledge is too rigid. I think rigidity is necessary when it comes to protecting the taxpayer. Am I wrong in how I'm thinking about that?
Well, there's one line in the sand that says when you come and say, oh, there's a problem, the answer is never raise taxes. The answer is reform government. Take a look at what you're doing, see what maybe you should stop doing or do less or do better. It really is a line in the sand that says do not cross, do not raise taxes. Raising taxes is what politicians do rather than governing. Governing is too hard. I'll just raise taxes and we'll spend more on everything we've been doing. We're not going to reform anything. We'll just do more of what didn't work. That's what we're trying to put an end to.
Yeah. Now, Grover Norquist, you've always said that the purpose of tax reform is freedom, not fairness. How do you define freedom in the context of government shutdowns? And what should the Republicans be looking to do for future budgeting, how to shift and change how we budget?
Well, I think we do need to go back to regular order. That may take 60 votes in the Senate someday for the Republicans to be able to enforce that. That may be necessary. The Democrats may keep filibustering. On the other hand, if they lose enough elections over this subject, there are things that the Republicans and Trump have shown you can do, such as through reconciliation, reduce spending and reduce taxes and avoid the filibuster. Doesn't let you change laws, but it does let you change numbers. And so a lot of the reforms that we got, both in the first Trump term and this one, came in a reconciliation package, which is different because you can avoid having a filibuster. We may have to do more of our business that way if the Democrats are not going to be grown-ups.
Yeah. Should we do away with the required 60 votes to pass the budget? Should we go back to what we did?
I really like the filibuster. It stops. If we didn't have 60 votes, there'd be no right to work in the country. Everybody would be forced to pay union dues for their job. That only is stopped by the filibuster. At various points, they would have had complete gun control. They'd have taken all the guns. When the Democrats have had a supermajority, they would have used that temporary supermajority to wildly change the country in damaging ways that would be difficult to fix.
You know, last time I think I met you, I don't know if it was California or Texas, but I didn't have the courage to come up to you to ask this question, but I've always wanted to know what you thought about this. When history looks back, what do you hope people say Grover Norquist accomplished for the American taxpayer and for the idea of freedom itself?
Well, what we're working on and what I hope we'll continue to work on is to make sure that all Republicans sign the pledge. And someday I hope that all Democrats will as well, so that tax increases are not an option, spending restraint and reform is. The other is that we're moving at the state level to flat rate taxes rather than graduated taxes, which was point number 2 on Karl Marx's list of 10 things to do to oppose communism. Graduated income tax, where if you work on Saturday, you pay more of your income into the government. We want to have fairness if everybody pays 2% or 4%. Then it takes envy off the table. And there are, in the last 5 years, 7 states that Americans for Tax Reform worked with the governors and state legislators to pass legislation to make their states single rate. And that makes it more difficult for politicians to raise taxes. In Illinois, they have by constitution a single rate tax because they did it before they went crazy. And that's 4.95.
Yeah.
Other states like Illinois are New York at over 10%, Minnesota 10%, California 14 to 15%. So that flat rate tax keeps the income tax down for everybody in the state of Illinois, and it can do that for other states.
I know. I remember when I was there, they were trying to give the governor the power to change it, and they did. I think we were at 2 or 3% flat tax rate, and now the governor has in perpetuity power to change it anytime he wants now in Illinois, and that's unfortunate. But Grover, just one quick question: over or under on Mondami signing your tax pledge?
I don't think he'll be signing the tax pledge. I think he will be no one's life is a complete waste. Some people serve as bad examples, and San Francisco and New York City under Mondami will serve as bad examples for other cities.
Yeah. Are we a socialist country, or are we teetering on the brink of it?
No, we have too much government, but we generally have people get to own their own homes. They get to own their places of business and small business. Are there 1,000, 10,000 stupid regulations? Yes. Do we have to prune those back? Absolutely. But we are so much better off than Europe, which has a sort of soggy welfare state. They're not growing. If England joined the United States as a state, it would be the 51st poorest state.
Wow.
Poorer than Mississippi. Okay. Wow. England used to run the world. Poorer than Mississippi per capita, right? For each person. And if Germany became a state, it would be just ahead of Mississippi for 2 to 3 years, and then it would fall behind if present trends continue. Europe is getting poorer because it has this welfare state, big government spending, and there is no Donald Trump Republican Party fighting to keep that spending down in Europe. I mean, it's very sad. These guys are committing sort of cultural, political suicide, and I don't know how they've got to stop it themselves. We can't save them.
I'll take the province of Alberta, though. They're rich in oil. I'll take them over any of those countries any day.
They're doing fine. They're doing fine.
Grover Norquist, I'm going to give you this pledge. Every person that's running for office, I am going to pretty much tell them they have to sign this pledge. Anybody that I interview, I will definitely bring up the pledge. What's the website again?
Yeah, website ATR, Americans for Tax Reform, ATR.org. Anyone who signs for you, we'll do a personal press release out on the fact that they did it and that they did it with being on your show.
All right, I'm going to do that. Grover Norquist, founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform. Ronald Reagan's brain as it relates to freedom and taxes. Thanks so much for joining us on Detroit's Morning Answer.
Good to be with you. Thanks so much.
All right, Grover Norquist. That was a bucket list item right there, Paul. I've always loved Grover, and I think it was Texas. I think it was at the Texas Public Policy Foundation where I was with him. That's when Rick Perry was running for president. I think that was back in 2014, 15. I wish I remember. I'm getting old, Paul. I'm getting old. I love that interview with Grover. You're listening to Detroit's Morning Answer. We'll be right back.